Liberals panicked by the pandemic are getting angry when they discover their own gun control laws. This is a case of liberals' own laws backfiring on them, because now that they want to get their own guns for their own protection and safety, they can't because of their own policies. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, and today on redstate.com. So, virus-panicked liberal gun buyers are getting angry when they discover their own gun control laws. You know how people talk about irony? Well, this is one of those situations. I was chatting with a friend of mine recently, and the topic of gun sales came up. My friend's father owns a gun range near me, and she said he's seen a huge amount of liberals coming in to purchase weapons in the recent weeks. How does he know they're liberals? They're shocked to discover that you can't just walk out of the store with a gun. In the face of a global pandemic, a disrupted supply chain, and limited supplies, people are scared. Crime and looting has been on the rise. In fact, take a look at this story on the Hill. Robberies by suspects wearing medical masks reported in multiple states. So there's people taking advantage of the coronavirus pandemic and wearing face masks to hide their identities and rob homes. This is one story of many. In light of all this, liberals are now trying to get guns. But they're shocked when they discover that their own gun control policies make it really hard. That reminds me of that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode, where some of the characters try to get a gun, and they think it's going to be easy, but then they realize, well, there's gun control.
Look at all these maniacs. Goddamn bloodthirsty freaks walking in off the street. So easy for anybody to just waltz in and buy a gun.
That was fast.
You've been denied.
You know, you light one bitch on fire and everybody freaks out. Oh, you son of a bitch. It was one time and one thing.
Relax,
I just...
relax.
It's exactly like that episode. These liberals actually believe that you can just walk into a gun store, pick out a gun, buy it, and walk out. In some cases, this may be true, but in most cases, it is not. Annoying background checks, yada yada yada. Lots of legal paperwork, registering. Especially if you live in a blue state, the gun control laws make it very difficult. Now, before we look at this story, a quick word from this week's sponsor.
Zuck the cuck drinks water like a duck, but he also drinks your data. So tell him and Google to shove your data up their schwing-schwangs by downloading the Brave browser. It's free, blocks online advertising, and protects your privacy and data from evil tech companies. You only see ads if you want to see them, and you get cryptocurrency for your attention. Don't let Zuck use you to make a buck. Download Brave by clicking on the link down below.
And we're back. So, we've all heard about gun sales skyrocketing recently. Kind of like the TV show.
We're running out of guns, and we have to manufacture more guns. Supply is not meeting the demand.
But I hadn't considered some of the tangential effects of the phenomena until I spoke to my friend. Not only are many liberals suddenly learning to love their Second Amendment rights, many of them are finding out that the gun control narrative in this country, as repeated loudly and often by Hollywood and the mainstream media, and Democrats, is a complete lie. Now, there's a few things that these people fail to mention. Based on FBI statistics, most gun deaths in the United States are not a result from guns like the AR-15, so-called semi-automatic rifles, but in fact, they are from handguns. Most gun crime is in poor areas, in urban areas, and are criminally related. In fact, most crimes committed with guns are committed with unregistered illegal guns. In other words, guns that didn't come from a store. Black market weapons. So the author of this article goes on to say, I contacted my friend's father to ask about what he is seeing personally at his own range these days. Greg Bosling runs an on-target indoor shooting range in Laguna Niguel, California. It's where I taught my son to shoot and where I'll teach my daughter once the chaos lifts. He says that while others are stuck at home while the country grinds to a halt, he's been working non-stop at the range as the applications for background checks and permits are stacking up daily. Bosling claims he hasn't done business like this since the days of Obama. So demand for guns is higher than ever, and a lot of these liberals are flocking to buy guns, which is very interesting considering that they continue to vote against the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and free speech. Now that I think of it, it's backfiring on them massively, because they're getting screwed out of weapons, and any of them with a wrong and incorrect history can't get guns at all. So Boslang says that safety has been a huge issue at the range, as many of these first-time liberal buyers seem to have gotten all of their notions about guns and safety from television. We tried to look at just who the new firearm purchasers were, and we believe that more than 60% of these individuals were first-time buyers. I can't describe the amount of fear in my staff, as we had the buyers show proof of safe handling as part of the purchase process, as required by law. You have never seen so many barrels pointed at sales staff and other customers. It was truly frightening. We had to keep stopping the process to give quick safety lessons.
30 days, no charge.
Ooh, 30 days. Sounds fair. My goodness, Dennis, this feels good. Feels good in my hand.
So these liberals are so clueless. They're so absolutely clueless about weapons that they don't even know the basics. Don't put your finger on the trigger, and do not point your gun at someone unless you're prepared to shoot. Don't be an idiot. But these people have no idea. This is what he goes on to say about the so-called liberals. As a gun owner who formerly abhorred the Second Amendment, I can personally testify to the fact that most people who believe they are anti-gun are actually just anti-stupid. More like just stupid, am I right? They just don't realize that they're projecting their own stupidity onto law-abiding gun owners. And that's pretty much what it boils down to. Like I said, getting rid of guns or banning guns doesn't actually stop criminals from acquiring guns. They imagine that we gun owners are just a bunch of yahoos out here combing our mullets, waving our guns around to look sexy, while we look for anyone to shoot at any time. You're goddamn right. God bless America. They have no respect for the power of a weapon and treat them accordingly. So this is what he's witnessing. A lot of these people have no clue. And these are people voting for laws to restrict guns and trying to speak out against the Second Amendment and violate our constitutional rights. It really amazes me. So he says the most amusing and annoying part for the staff has been watching these first-time buyers discover just how stringent gun laws are in California, including one of our newest laws requiring background checks before buying ammunition. Boostlog says it's a bridge too far for the people who have been told their whole lives that it's easier to get a gun than an abortion. And honestly, if anything, it's the abortions that are way too easy to get. Talk about ending lives? Yeah. Buying a gun doesn't automatically end a life, but the other one does. Here's how clueless liberals really are, okay, about their own gun laws. More than a dozen of these buyers, men and women, actually thought that since they filled out and signed everything, they could just walk out and go home with a firearm. Several actually said they saw how easy it was to buy a gun on TV, and why did they have to fill out all these forms? Oh my god. So this is the problem with your modern leftists. They actually believe that real life is TV. And a lot of this media is full of propaganda. And then when you realize these two facts, you see a pattern. You begin to understand why there are so many liberals out there and why they believe what they believe. They're NPCs. They see it on the TV. They see that, oh, it's so easy to buy a gun. We could just get a gun too. It's so easy to get a gun. We must take away the Second Amendment, not knowing how things actually work. They actually believe that the fiction is reality. So every time I hear a liberal say, well, you know, reality has a liberal bias, I cringe all the way down to my soul because there's nothing liberal about reality. So he says the majority of these first-timers lost their minds when we went through the ammo law requirements. Most used language not normally heard even at the gun range. We pointed out that since no one here voted for these laws, then maybe they might know someone who did. You tell them. And now they have to deal with it. Oh no. Isn't it so sad when liberals have to deal with the consequences of their own actions? Most were very vocal about why it takes 10 days minimum, sometimes longer if the DOJ is backed up, to take their property home with them. It's because of Democrats. It's because of the laws you voted for. This is what amazes me about liberals. They've got no clue. They really went crazy when we told them for each firearm they had to do the same amount of paperwork and they could only purchase one handgun every 30 days. Again, we didn't vote for that law. We had people cuss at us and stomp out when we explained that secondary identification had to be part of the paperwork as they felt insulted that what they had wasn't good enough. We have a number of Yelp reviews calling us names and other things about how bad we are because of the whole new buyer rush. So, there you go. That's your average liberal. He has no idea what he's really voting for, and once he has to deal with the consequences of what he voted for, He cries, he whines, he stomps, and he runs out, not understanding that it was their own dumb actions that caused all this. This reminds me a lot of the Democratic flight from blue states. You see, blue states are losing population. Lots of people are leaving. And you know what they do? These Democrats move to red states like Texas for the lower taxes, the lower cost of living, and the better conditions. And what do they do when they move to a red state? They vote Democrat. But those absolute morons have no idea what they're doing. They left these blue states because these blue states are run by Democrats, and the Democrats ruined the states. And then they move to red states and they still vote Democrat. You know the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You think that voting for a Democrat is going to end any different? It won't. You will lose your rights. Your country, your state will go down the shitter. The economy will go down the shitter. Taxes will go up. And there'll be more violations of your rights. Stop voting Democrat. These liberals piss me off! As these revelations begin to spread among our liberal brethren in the state of California, will we see a shift in gun laws? Only time will tell. But it will surely be an interesting question to ponder. So that's the article. I'm really not surprised that these liberals are that clueless, but it's funny. WNG says, fewer things give constitutional conservatives more joy than liberalism biting a liberal in the ass. Evie says, at no time does a liberal believe a law applies to them. Laws are strictly for keeping the conservatives in line and under control. And you see this behavior from liberals often. Rules for thee, but not for me. They often believe that they're above it all and they'll never have to deal with the consequences of the things they vote for. But in this case, they absolutely do. That's what you get. Maybe next time you'll vote in support of gun rights. But that's merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this story? I think it's poetic justice. I think it's hilarious. And I think it's ironic. But let me know what you think. If you want to support the channel, you can join me on Patreon or Subscribestar. Links are down below in the description. If you want to donate, there's Donor Box and Bitcoin. All that, again, is in the description. Lastly, one of the best things you can do for the channel is to share the video. As always, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.